natin yan. Para magandang sounds. Okay. Second lang. Yay. Sorry wala na palang kape eh. Lagyan natin to. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Sound check yan para ayos! Boom! That's it! Let's get it on! Yan, pag-usapan natin yan! Hello mga kameta! Kamusta kayo dyan sa YouTube? Dito sa Facebook? Dyan sa... Hindi, TikTok. Wala pa tayong... May live ba sa TikTok? Meron bang version na gano'n? Anyway mga kameta, kamusta po kayo? I hope you had a restful and spiritually enriching weekend. Of course, as we head into the Holy Week, and of course, the coming days, I hope people will take the time and opportunity to spend more time with family and loved ones, to reflect on our spiritual needs, and of course, dun sa sakripisyo, no? Ni Jesus, no? So, I hope guys that, yun nga, I hope people will have the proper time para, alam mo na, muni-muni dyan. Anyway, mga kameta, today I was thinking, actually, I wanted to talk about something else. I was thinking about talking about the BRICS kasi yung Brazil, Russia, India, China, medyo may announcement sila na bago na medyo malaki, no? Hindi medyo announcement, medyo malaki yung announcement at yun yung plano na mag-create ng alternative currency ang mga BRICS country, and also the decision by India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, to push for more rupee, Indian currency-based international trade. Malaki implication ito mga kameta, especially dun sa mga yung mga bansa na medyo napapagod na doon sa dominance of US dollar, dominance of the US Federal Reserve. Kasi kung titignan mo yung kasaysayan ng world economy since the end of Second World War, parang nakasalala yung ating ekonomiya, yung value na ating currency, among others, doon sa mga desisyon ng mga Amerikano, no? Especially US Federal Reserves. And that dominance of the US dollar is something that emerging power countries are trying to challenge. So if you look at purchasing power parity, pag-usapan natin na mabuti yan later this week. Actually, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa now have collectively a bigger economy, again, in purchasing power parity than G7 countries, yung mga Western countries plus Japan, no? Although you can say Japan is also kind of part of the West, no? So, and soon, baka sumali ng Saudi Arabia, Iran, Turkey, and a number of major emerging economies from Middle East and around the world dito sa BRICS. So the BRICS is expected to challenge more and more yung US US dominance, no? In terms of international financial markets. So yun sana pag-usapan natin. Pero napansin ko while I was trying to write about yung column natin for this week, na-realize ko meron palang pahabol si Jarius Bondok before the end of the month. And so as I said, diba, just to be fair, again, we're not saying that the results of the elections were not valid. We're not questioning the results of elections per se. But katulad ng sinabi ni Leni Robredo, if there are certain concerns, we have to look into them and discuss them properly. Yun yung sinabi ni last year while accepting the result of the elections. Of course, many would say sa sobrang laki ng agwat between Leni Robredo and the winning candidate, Bongbong Marcos, parang kahit tanggapin mo na may potential irregularities, just the gap is too big. Nevertheless, there are some people who are raising concerns about the entire process, no? Again, these are all allegations that we're talking about. And to be honest, medyo surprised ako na wala masyadong ibang pumapansin dito sa mga at least 3 articles between March 17 and March 31 na na-publish ni Jarius Bundok, who's actually one of the more established columnists and respected ones in the country. Of course, he comes from Philippine Star, ako from Philippine Daily Inquirer, pero wala naman sa akin issue yan, di ba? Wala namang rivalry yan. So ako, sabi ko, in the interest of fairness and in the interest of people having, obviously, interest in this issue, let's just discuss this last installment dun sa trilogy niya dito sa issue ng whether there are serious issues dun sa transmission ng results ng 2022 elections. Again, mga kameta, katulad ng pinag-usapan natin in the past, if you look at the surveys by Pulse Asia, for instance, the results of the elections were not too far from the projections of Pulse Asia and somehow also tracked dun sa survey ng SWS. Also, of course, after the elections, a few months later, you had, of course, the Pulse Asia also conducting a survey whereby 82% of Filipinos actually accepted the result of the elections. Leni Robredo dun sa canvassing, the final moment when the Congress was certifying the results of elections, also did not raise any contestation. So, surprisingly, despite general acceptance of the results based on the numbers in the survey we have, general acceptance of results based on at least what the camp of Leni Robredo did, it looks like hindi pa rin tapos yung yung usapan, 'di ba? And obviously, I also understand because, yan, katulad na na-point out ng mga ka-meta natin dyan sa YouTube, obviously, yung mga iba na have huge doubts, concerns about the result of elections, it's probably based not only on terms of their emotions, it's probably partly based on the fact that Bongbong Marcos Jr. back in 2016 also challenged the result of Leni's victory. So siguro para sa kanila, this is the time na kumbaga, 'di ba? Payback time, 'di ba? Kung kayong nag-contest sa amin noon 2016, kami rin magko-contest sa'yo. So siguro there's an element of that. And then may iba dyan na even hindi voter ni Leni, may pagka-element ng Schadenfreude, you know? Saying, okay, tingnan natin where is this gonna go, no? But beyond that, of course, may mga iba dyan, especially supporters ni Leni na whose views were very much shaped by Google Trends, right? And some of these attacks against these conspiracy theories against polling agencies in the Philippines. So, base doon sa kanilang alternative analytics, parang expectation nila was the race to be very close, in fact, for Leni to even win, no? So, medyo sobrang layo yung nangyari kumpara doon sa resulta ng election na lumabas officially. Now, having said all of those things, I think there's some people who may even accept the result of elections who will say 2016 is different from 2022 and they're not in the Schadenfreude mode. But they still have some concerns about bakit parang ang bilis ng transmission ng resulta nung 2022 elections, especially compared to what we had in the past. And that was the context of our conversation the other week. Now, don't worry mga kameta, pag-usapan pa natin yung issue na yan. Yung issue ng, is it even healthy for us to keep on dwelling on the transmission part of the elections when in fact perhaps we should talk about vote buying, we should talk about intimidation of voters, disenfranchisement, all sorts of other shenanigans that prevent us from having actually fair and competitive elections. At sabi ko nga, there are reports by different groups that documented yung alleged vote buying and other kind of shenanigans that put into question how competitive, fair, and popular elections were. But nevertheless, as I said, in the interest of discussion, sige, tingnan natin itong questioning ng isang kampo, which interestingly, I didn't see Ma'am Leni Robredo or Senator Riza Ontiveros or any of the leaders of opposition or the leader of Liberal Party, among others, getting into this debate. Medyo absent sila sa scene. Because if you remember, mga kameta, back in the day when Marcos Jr.'s camp was challenging the victory of Leni Robredo, Marcos Jr. himself was very much front and center. At some points, you had no less than former President Rodrigo Duterte kind of giving credence to the attack on the legitimacy and mandate of Leni Robredo. But this time, it's not really Leni camp, as far as I know, on the surface, who are giving credence to these kind of attacks. But you have a number of former military officials, a former Colonel Odonio, former General, AFP number 2, or Deputy Chief and former DICT Acting Secretary and DICT Undersecretary General Rio Jr. So you have a number of these people coming out. Again, it's very interesting that I don't see leaders of opposition or official leaders of the opposition really coming on and supporting it. And then, as I said, it's also quite surprising that Jarius Bondok's triple articles on this issue within the span of 2 weeks is not getting as much traction among other, let's say, supporters of the opposition. I don't know, maybe they feel it's a moot and academic issue, maybe they feel it's time to move on, maybe they feel that it's a little bit queasy, it's a little bit of a, dodgy issue altogether. Let's just avoid that. I don't know. As I said, naman my stance on this issue. Alam naman yung stance na issue ko. For me, ang kailangan talaga ng opposition is to go beyond just thinking about what happened in 2022. They should, as early as now, think about 2025 and definitely also 2028. No, that was the bone of contention between me and some of the people who have been trying to say, no, we have to still focus on 2022. Dapat yun talagang ano natin. Okay. Anyway, hindi naman mutually exclusive yan eh. Kaya nga, just to say that actually the two are not mutually exclusive. For that reason, let's go back and see. So, if you look at it, see. Jarius Bondok had actually 3 different articles over the past 2 weeks or so. Grabe parang dalawa pa sa isang araw yata nun. So, the first one was this one about NAMFREL. Right? This was the first one. And then the second one is what we discussed the other last week, mga kameta. Diba? Ito yon. And kung tignan mo, medyo strong yung wording ng So, the first one, if you look at it, mga kameta, it's saying NAMFREL finding support general suspicion of 2022 election rigging. By general, what do you mean? General number of population? Because if surveys say 82% accepted, then it's not that general. It's a plurality minority. I don't know how you want to put it. Anyway, so actually one of the things I noticed with Jarius Bondok's articles is that it's sometimes not sure saan yung reportage, saan yung kanyang sariling opinion. Because remember, he's not writing report articles, he's writing opinion pieces, column pieces. But parang minsan kulang talaga ng quotation marks. I don't know if that's a direct quotation of Rio and Odonio. I'm not sure where were these statements made. Were they made in person to him? Were they made in a particular conference? Hindi clear sa akin. So there are times I'm not very sure where is his opinion per se, or assessment or judgment? Where is the direct quotation of others, reportage, or point argument of Rio, Odonio, NAMFREL, etc., which may not necessarily be his? Yun lang medyo na strange lang, medyo weird lang sa akin kasi for me, dapat very clear ka eh. Dapat there should be a quotation mark. You should clarify saan galing quotes na yan. Was it told to you personally, etc.? I know, maybe some people have their own style of writing columns, etc. But my point is, since medyo sensitive yung topic, medyo important yung topic, we have to be very clear about where these words coming from. Is this the words of the columnist? Is this the words from General Rio? Saan galing yan? Anong konteksto? Saan sinabi yan? Mahalaga yan sa akin eh, because this is a very important issue, mga kameta. Even if sasabihin mo mutin academic na yung elections last year, nevertheless, mga kameta, di ba? Importante talaga yung issue ng election results, no? Because we're talking about also future elections in terms of confidence and trust. Because the thing is, the effect of some of these articles is that they're gonna, sow doubts, seeds of doubt about integrity of election process. So what's gonna happen in the next elections, etc. Anyway, punta tayo dito sa sa latest niya. Basahin natin yung sinabi niya dito. Kasi, ang COMELEC ay nag-submit na po ng... One second. In fairness naman sa Commission on Elections, nag-respond naman sila dun sa request for yung logs, no? Basahin natin yan, mga kameta, okay? Please feel free to also read it on your own. So, ayon kay Jarius Bondok, itong article niya just the other day, March 31, retired General Eleksyon Rio and Colonel Leonardo Donio are upset. Ayon sa kanyang, COMELEC handed them not the transmission logs, but the reception logs of election 2022 results. Okay, again, I suppose this is what Rio and Odonio are claiming. And then quotation mark deception. They decreed the act. Now, this is where it gets a little bit queasy. Like, reception logs are, okay, are records of what Comelec's transparency server, okay, received, then broadcast last May 9, 2022. Okay. But transmission logs are records of what the 106,174 precincts vote counting machines individually sent to the TS. So the reception logs and transmission logs, okay, I see some difference, but they seem to be similar to me, right? Like, what is sent is also what is received, right? Diba? Kaya this next sentence says transmission reception logs should match. Kaya nga, diba? I mean, logically, kung yung sinent mo dapat kasama, medyo similar dun sa na-receive, diba? Ayon kay Rio and Odonio, ay 80 years old na palang isa at 78. Okay, medyo senior na sila. But they suspect that results were fabricated to project 20 million plus votes. Ito yung ayon sa article na yan. Ito, basahin nyo ulit ha. Okay, ito. Ito. Okay. Alright, ito yung sinasabi niya. Okay? Ito, ayon sa kanya, ito yung claim nila. A winning trend was concocted for President VP to condition the public mind. But again, my problem with the conditioning of the mind argument is that the surveys were also saying something similar. So you're saying all of the surveys also part of the condition of the mind. If the surveys were part of the condition of the mind, did you need additional conditioning of the mind? Like, what's going on here? So si Rio again is one of the Truth and Transparency trio with ex-communister Gus Lagman and Finance Executive Institute ex-President Franklin Isaac. They petitioned the Supreme Court in November to compel Comelec and Telco Smart Globe and DTOG Telecommunication to release the transmission logs. Told by SC early March to reply within 5 days, Comelec sought 1 month extension till April 2. On Wednesday, March 29, Odonio wrote Comelec Chairman George Garcia, subject, ayan, ito. Basahin niya na. So ito po yung sinulat niya. Kayo mismo basahin niya yan. See, I'm very careful in terms of how I approach this again, diba? Because we have to be clear. What are we reporting here? What is being written here? Okay, so ito po yung letter ni Odonio dun sa Comelec. Alright, ito yung accusation niya. Okay. So dito ang sinasabi nung isang plaintiff, okay, sabi niya, on March 23, siya at saka General Rio received in good faith the transmission logs. That night, General Rio started analyzing them, only for him to find out yesterday, March, they were not transmission logs. They were reception logs put out by the Transparency Server, which supposedly received votes transmitted by precinct VCMs countrywide. Alright? Ayan, medyo strongly worded na yung statement. You can read this on your own. So, again, to be clear, I'm not gonna pretend I'm an expert in IT when it comes to... Magaling ako sa mga games, okay? Mga FIFA, sige. Pwede na rin siguro yung mga ibang games. But so I'm not gonna pretend I know this. I'm just approaching it based on what rudimentary understanding I have of the issue. And also, of course, the legal and political context of this. So ito yung sinabi nila na the accusation is may deception na nangyari, okay? Tapos biglang dito, ito naman yung sinabi naman ni Rio. Okay. Yung kay Odonio yung isa, ito naman kay Rio. Okay, again, you can read it on your own. So both of them are making similar allegations or complaints na yung binigay niyo sa amin, hindi naman talaga yan ang hinanap namin. Iba yung hinanap po namin, di ba? Again, I'm not an IT expert, so I do not see how different the two are. Or what is the relevant, is this a distinction without difference? So ito naman yung kay Rio. So na-forward siguro kay Bondok yan, kaya may copy si Bondok. Now what I'm again interested in here is ano yung clarification ng Comelec and like, are the two even different? And if the difference really makes any distinction or kind of gives credence to arguments on whether valid yung line of attack. So generally, the argument of the critics is that ang bilis nung transmission, within 1 hour lang, 20 million nakapasok. That's impossible given yung protocols, given yung logistics, etc. So essentially, yun po yung argument nila. No? Okay. So, I suggest you guys read this on your own. So, there are 3 different articles that came out. Ito, between March 17 and all. NAMFREL finding support generals, suspicion of 2020 election rigging. Ayon kay Dito sa article ng Bondok, COMELEC transmission logs show fraud in 2020 polls according to Rio Nodonio, and deception daw, yung binigay ay hindi transmission logs pero receiving logs. Okay. Now, as I said, parang bumibenta yung mga ganitong arguments because, of course, the context is this, diba? Back in the day, yung attack kay Lenny na hindi siya valid president because may problema sa automated elections, hindi, etc., etc. So, siguro yung iba sinasabi na, why? Ito payback time naman, ganun. But obviously, the one big difference kasi with elections in 2016, mga kameta, is napaka-close nung elections nun, diba? You're talking about only a few hundred thousands of votes. But just to be clear, the Supreme Court on multiple occasions actually reaffirmed yung victory ni Lenny Robredo. Alright? Just in case, just if ever lang nakalimutan natin, okay? So this is the context in 2016. Actually, the Supreme Court junked yung poll protest versus Robredo and reaffirmed it. And there were like 3 times na punta sa Supreme Court on all 3 cases. 3 times, Lenny actually came up victorious. Now the question is are they gonna return the favor? And this is where it's weird. Like, ano yun? Kanya-kanyang diskarte lang yun. Yung mga iba nag-criticize. I don't know what's going on here, mga kameta. Anyways, what I want to say, mga kameta, here is this. That's why we had that conversation with Benedict Bernabe the other day. And we'll have the video out. The podcast version should be out right now. So please support Richard Haydarian Podcast. May nahanap na kami ng mga studio, by the way. May nahanap kami ng studio na pwede namin rent to do in person. So one of the things we're looking at, mga kameta, is hopefully, especially once some of our friends are in town, Leloy, Joseph, among others, hopefully we're thinking of putting people together, renting a studio, having it 3, 4, 5 hours. Meron din palang option also to let in some of the audience. Although we're thinking, just to support the project and make it sustainable, kung may ticket yan, or to make sure na we just have enough space kasi hindi naman super daming taong ang kasya. So, may mga question kami. Salamat kay Mark Gumbo also for checking that. Actually, I suggested to check that. So, may mga nahanap kami, mga kameta. So, we're hoping to have more of those conversations soon. Anyway, going back to that, please check the podcast, and in the coming hours, check my YouTube and also dito sa Facebook. Hopefully by tomorrow, dapat lalabas yan. Yung interview namin with Ben Bernabe, because he was one of the chief communication strategists of the Lenny campaign. And his argument was, he was surprised by the results of the elections, but I didn't get a sense that he's totally questioning the victory of the other side. I just didn't get that sense. And the other thing that is important is that I also sense that there is an appreciation of the need for properly analyzing saan naman nagkakulang yung campaign ng opposition nung 2022 elections, because ultimately this goes back to what I've been saying all the time. Lenny getting 50 million votes in itself, officially at least, is something that shows just the potential here, especially the potential of the pink movement, right? But that movement will not be a movement if there's no blueprint, there's no organization, there's no constant sustained mobilization, and there's no leadership. That's extremely, extremely important. That's extremely, extremely important, mga kameta. And so, yun nga yung point ko. Like, I hope the intention behind some of this questioning of the result is not to distract us from the need to also properly analyze saan nakakulang ang opposition in terms of campaign strategy. Like, did it make sense to attack and have a conspiracy theory against all of the polling agency? I'm not saying that's the official position of the opposition, but there were some charlatans attached to the opposition who tried to do that. Was it healthy to over-focus on Google Analytics and not look at alternative surveys, not only one side, two side, but multiple surveys, and try to come up with the mean of that? Was it healthy, or is it healthy to continue this stance na wala, BBM is not is not a valid president, the whole thing was a sham, etc., and attack everything that he does? Is that gonna help, practically speaking, for the opposition to come together, or is that just gonna emotionally help some people to assuage their pain, their frustrations? So that's my point. It is possible to have a healthy skepticism, whereby you look at the evidence and accordingly make certain judgments. But it's another thing to already have a preconceived notion of what happened last year, so that's emotionally easy for you, and then try to look for whatever supposed evidence or reports that has an element of confirmation bias, right? Do you get what I'm saying here? Because I always said, if you really want a progressive Philippines, it's extremely important to have a healthy approach to reality, right? Including times where things are not going very well, because by learning from your mistakes, you can always do better in the future. That's what I always say, mga kameta. That's extremely, extremely important. But then again, I'm also fair. So I'm not totally dismissive of every whatever report about whatever issue. As I said, vote buying is some big issue that we have to pay attention to. This has been a problem throughout all elections. But what I'm saying, mga kameta, see, hindi ako dismissive. Like, if there is a report by someone, columnist like Jaris Bondok, not once, twice, 3 times, sige, tignan natin ano yung accusation here. But what I'm saying is that why I'm not seeing other opposition leaders coming in and giving credence to them? Why I'm not seeing in other experts? Because for me, if you really have a serious question about the transmission, the results of the last year's elections, then siguro what you really need is a thorough, comprehensive investigation by a panel of experts who are completely non-partisan. Very important. Or as non-partisan as you can get as far as Philippine political context is concerned. That's a very important thing. So I don't want to hear we'll have a situation of just confirmation bias. But me, in the interest of having proper objective discussion there, I'm going to say, this is what this camp is saying. This is what the other camp is saying. These are the potential points. These are the potential questionable points. So what we're trying to do here, mga kameta, is to have healthy skepticism. Now, if you want partisan, vlogger, andyan sila lahat. Pangalan pala ng mga vlogging nila, alam mo na, di ba? Ka-Unity 101. No, you get what I'm saying? Like, if you're looking for that, go ahead. Watch them. But do you think that will really help the opposition? Do you think that will really help our democracy? Do you think that will give the opposition a better chance in the future? Right? Do you think that's even healthy? Not to mention, if you so much want to believe something, you could fall for anything. Right? Yun yung sinasabi nila parate. Did I get that from Nabokov? Ay, saan ko nakuha yun? Okay. Yeah? If you're so desperate to believe in something, then you'll fall for anything. Or kay Sartre yan. So my point is, let's discuss this thing, but let's have healthy skepticism towards all camps. Because accordingly, we can make healthy, reasonable judgments. Otherwise, it's hard to say you're against disinformation and fake news, and then you yourself are open to anything, even if fake news potentially or conspiracy theories, as long as it assuages your emotions or makes you feel better. I'm not sure that's a healthy way forward. Anyway, mga kameta, thank you very much. I appreciate this discussion. Salamat sa sorry, may mga meetings tayo and all. I just thought we have to discuss this so that hopefully we can move on now. Now, if there's anyone else who's gonna, pitch in from leader of opposition, etc., then fine. It's okay. I'll follow up on this. But again, in the interest of fairness, I discuss. Okay, if this is the line of attack, tingnan natin. But again, for me, I hope that does not distract opposition from what they also need to do, perhaps even more importantly, which is a proper reflection on what went right and wrong and what could improve in the coming elections and how can they sustain the momentum of the pink movement moving forward. All right? Maraming salamat, guys. Thank you very much and talk to you soon.